This is my very own Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, a tier 2 adventure for 5th edition written by JVC Parry and myself. It has all of the important elements of play, pillars of play if you will, lighthearted role-playing, sea exploration, a classical feeling dungeon crawl, and much more. And although I normally review and talk about other people's products on my channel right here, today I want to take the chance to kind of talk about my own adventure that I published together with JVC Parry, talk about some things that I really like about it, how it turned out, and some stuff that I might do differently next time. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr.Tarrasque and this is your go-to YouTube channel for everything third-party Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition related, and today I'm talking about my own product, which is a third-party D&D 5th edition product, Isle of the Dreaded Accursed. After a successful Kickstarter, had the privilege of writing with JVC Parry. JVC Parry, if you're Joshua, if you're watching right now, I absolutely love you. Your work is amazing, and what you did for me and what I learned from you is just truly something that I want to put out there. I learned so much from you. I'm super extremely grateful forever. Anyway, Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, what I want to do in this video is kind of present this adventure to you, what you get if you pick it up as a PDF, what you get if you pick it up as a physical copy, but also I want to talk about the extra stuff you can pick up for it, because there is a full-on dungeon map which I'll be showing that you can put on your table to play with your miniatures. It comes with a freaking Dungeon Master screen that has all the information on the inside. You can see it also right there, all the information on the inside about the adventure, which I want to talk about, and then of course there are the dice. I also want to talk about the very cool looking dice that I am extremely happy with that I had, which are all in the same like ballpark as the adventure itself. The green returns. There is the big bad guy of the encounter is a skeletal dragon, so the green returns, and I'm really happy with this. Although there are a few mistakes that we made along the way, and just it was my first big adventure that I ever wrote, that I ever designed. So there's just a few things that I want to talk about that I'm just a little bit less happy with, and that I would do differently in the future. But first, let me just present to you what you get for your money. And before I talk about it, yes, you can still pick it up. If you want to pick up the PDF, just go to DriveThruRPG, link is in the description below. But if you want to pick up the physical edition of this, go to my very own web shop where I offer it as a physical edition, and it will probably never be printed again. So there's only a few more copies left. I think in total there's only like 15 or so more left. You can buy the map, you can buy the Dungeon Master screen, the player handouts that I will talk about, and there's even a chance for you to buy the physical as with a bit of a discount. And the reason for that is I have to say that one shipment of this got damaged. As you can see, the damage is not like unplayable or unusable. Some are a little bit worse than others, and you can buy these damaged versions because I lost a lot of money on that. You can buy these with a discount. So if you want to support me, buy the adventure. If you want to support me some more, buy a damaged copy. If you want to support me some more, buy the freaking Dungeon Master screen and everything. And if you just want to play a good nautical adventure, make sure to go to the DriveThruRPG and pick it up as a PDF. Now, what is Isle of the Dreaded Accursed? Isle of the Dreaded Accursed is a 5th edition adventure for tier 2 characters written by myself, JVC Parry, compatible with 5th edition, and as the title suggests, it is based on the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary by Nord Games, one of my favorite bestiaries with all kinds of undead creatures in it. One of them, by the way, being a skeletal dragon. So I got the idea from playing in my normal session in my living room with my friends, and we went to an island that had this dungeon crawl filled with undead, and I tried to I started to tie a story around that, and that is how I kind of came with the idea of Isle of the Dreaded Accursed and pitched it to JVC Parry and was like, hey, do you want to write this together? Let's do a Kickstarter for it, and if it was fun, we just write it together. And he was all excited, and we just did it together. And Isle of the Dreaded Accursed takes players all the way from level, like I would say 5 or 6 to 9 or 10, depending on the decisions they make. So it is more of a longer form adventure. It's not a one of those one shots. I played it completely, I think 3 times now, and I know a few people who played it already. And it's always somewhere between 4 sessions if rushed, all the way up to like 8 sessions if played leisurely. So I'm gonna kind of like summarize what it is, what the story is. There's just some minor spoilers in there for you. If you're a player, click away. If you're a game master, keep listening. So I Love the Dreaded Accursed takes players to Mountain Food Village, which lies in on the border somewhere of whatever campaign you're playing. It is completely open. I don't suggest anything in here for Forgotten Realms or whatever. You can place Mountain Food Village on the foot of any mountain, next to any lake or any sea or any river or whatever. So there is this evil sea goddess, which I called Alvaroth because the other name, Umberly, I cannot use in my adventure due to legal reasons. So Alvaroth is the sea goddess, an evil sea goddess. And she used to always have this island with a temple dedicated to her. And there was this culty cult of Alvaroth, that just was there, and they demanded to get sacrifices from sailors and cities on the borders and everything in order to keep Alvaroth kind of like at bay and keep her wrath kind of at bay, right? So years and years, hundreds of years went by, and people always brought like these sacrifices, and it kind of became like this story where people were like, most people didn't really believe that it was true, but they kept sending those sacrifices anyway because maybe it was true and they didn't want to take that chance. But the cult leader of Alvaroth kind of did something really bad. I'm not going to say exactly what it is. Later in the video I will. And Alvaroth has condemned the entire cult to be turned into freaking undead, with the cult leader being a skeletal dragon, or like Joshua likes to say, a skeletal dragon. Now, sailors across the lands are dying from diseases, krakens are popping up, there's an incredibly big sea spider, a Titanic sea spider, which is a fight in the freaking adventure, really early in the adventure, that just pops up in Mountain Food Village out of the sea and starts wreaking havoc, and the players need to defeat it, which is like the opening scene of the adventure, and all kinds of bad stuff is happening, and it is up to the players to find out what and how and when and why Alvaroth is pissed and why she knows about stuff that you shouldn't know about. And your players go from Mountain Food Village, which is all like fleshed out with an inn, with a mayor, with a leader of like the military. There is even a NPC based on myself, which is called Duke Heinrich, who is basically the person that actually gives the quest. And the players need to go and find the ultimate sacrifice to bring to Alvaroth's altar in order to settle her down, ease her a little bit into like stopping her wrath. And the ultimate sacrifice happens to be a kraken skull. And yes, I did my research. Krakens don't have skeletons, but they have skulls. So the players, although they're just tier 2, they need to go retrieve a kraken skull. So me and Joshua have come up with a cinematic encounter. That's what I call it. It's something that I've never really seen in other books, where they can go and retrieve the Kraken skull, which is really dangerous job to do, but they get the help of a fleet, and it's really cinematic. And then they need to bring that Kraken skull to the Temple of Alvaroth, which has an incredibly big dungeon below it. They need to go through all that dungeon, defeat all of the undead that live there, and find some secrets and do all some weird stuff, and bring that Kraken skull to the altar of Alvaroth. But the cult leader and the zombies are, of course, trying to stop the players. And that is basically Isle of the Dreaded Accursed. It is a sea goddess that is pissed off, that wants the ultimate sacrifice, but also wants to make your life miserable while you're bringing her what she wants. That's the kind of she is, right? So that's Isle of the Dreaded Accursed in a nutshell. And I just want to kind of like now talk about the physical copy, the dungeon master screen, the map, and the dice, and even like the player handouts that are in here. There is player handouts, just to give you an overall opinion, and then we'll look at the PDF, and I'll just give you like a more of an insight look into the adventure. So I want to be honest and straight up with you, because it is my own product. I want to start off with some of the mistakes we made, some of the things that are less good and I would do differently differently next time due to different reasons. Outside of the PDF just being awesome, the printing quality is awesome, I want to start off with just a few obvious things. The first thing being the Dungeon Master screen. Although I really love the Dungeon Master screen, now a lot of people opened it up this way and were like, holy crap, it's really bad quality. But when you put it, when you open it all the way up, right, you notice that it's kind of the point of this picture because they are in the forefront and the focus is on this zombie right here. So the Dungeon Master screen is really good. I really love this thing, and it has all the information where the players are. So they are in Mountain Food, so here are the important NPCs and a stat block for the Titanic Sea Spider. They are doing the Kraken encounter. All of the information for the Kraken encounter is right here. They are doing the sea exploration with like random encounters and treasure they can find, which all of that information is there. And then the dungeon crawl and the ant fight, there's information for that right here. So all of that, it works, but we made a little mistake, a little tiny mistake. First of all, there's one big spelling error in it, which is a thing that happens, but then something really stupid happens, which is my fault and Joshua's fault and all of our faults. This is written in English. This is also written in English. But this is written in American English, and this is written in British English. So immediately after releasing this, I got a few messages from people and were like, there's spelling mistakes in this. And I was like, no, that's British. And then I was like, oh, crap, we wrote this. Now, okay, Joshua Parry is British, so he automatically writes a lot of British stuff. And we wrote this in American English because the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary by Nord Games is an American English book. So that's what happened. So that is something that you need to look past. Otherwise, it's a great thing. But like some words are, instead of using just an O, it uses OU or what it, like you can really see it and notice it if you are one of those language buffs that notices that kind of stuff. I personally notice that kind of stuff. I just didn't notice it on time. The book got printed on one end of the world. The Dungeon Master screen got printed in China. Everything got printed somewhere else, and stuff happens. And I feel bad for it, but it happens. And then there is the dungeon map, the fold out dungeon map. Although I also really like having this on the table for people, it is a little bit dark. And the darkness of it is not like, there is a lot of detail in it. It's really great details. It is really piece of art, piece of work, really, really well done by the creator. But the blackness of like the empty areas kind of fade into like the dungeon. So if you're playing this, you need to have proper lighting on the fold out dungeon map in order to actually be able to use it. It just turned out darker than I expected. I looked at it on my computer. I saw video and photos of it from the printing company who were like, hey, this is what we have and everything. I was like, oh shit, that looks really great. And then I saw something, then I saw that the squares didn't line up, so I fixed that. The squares then lined up, but now it turns out it is actually just a little bit too dark. And then I want to quickly talk about the dice, which are right here, which look to me incredibly amazing when they're on the table, but some of them are a bit hard to read. So I know people who use these dice who aren't, like, the D20 is not like the big problem. I think the D8, yeah, I want to say the D8 might be like on camera is actually pretty readable. And in real life, it's less readable than on camera, which I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe my eyes are really bad, but you kind of just, in real life, you kind of just mess up the lines with like the 5, and it's just not incredibly readable for people who have trouble reading dice that aren't incredibly readable. So those are the main mistakes with like the products in general. And then there is a mistake in the book itself, which I just want to point out. I want to be fair with you guys. I'm not trying to like sell you this in a way that on page 45, we present you with a new race. So we present you with a few new races and a new class, which have artwork and all of that stuff, right? So there's this kind of stuff that puts in the back. So if you want to play a character, or you have one of those players on your table that really wants to play a character that makes sense for this campaign, we have that. But we have one new player race that doesn't have any artwork. I sincerely do not know how that went over my head, but it did. And that is probably the biggest thing about it. But other than that, I'm really, really happy with it. The last physical thing I want to talk about is something that I might like the most, which are player handouts. You can get these as an extra if you buy the physical product and you buy it with the dungeon map screen and the map and everything. You will get a few player handouts, 4 to be in total, but I only have 3 here. I don't know where I put the 4th one of my personal copy, which is like the adventure starts with an inn, the Funky Fish Tavern, and you immediately get a sense of how the tavern is run with the Funky Fish Tavern menu, which says stuff like seafood salad. It's a salad with shrimp, mussels, and anything else I could pick off of the bottom of a boat. That's really what it says here. It has fish stew, a variety of seasonal fish in the delicious and cheap stew. Look around, most people are eating it. So slowly smoked and salted manta ray, best dish in the world, made me famous. There's smoked sushi, and then orca steak, only available when available. Ask Stacy. Only a handful have eaten it, but it made me famous. So that is it puts the atmosphere of the adventure in it. It puts the atmosphere of the Funky Fish Tavern. I'm really happy with this menu. I think we really nailed this one. And then there's a few player handouts that's just really cool. Like, the adventure has a major plot twist. I'm not gonna say what it is, but it has a major plot twist. The character based on me is the bad guy. But I'm not gonna tell you what happens. So this is a letter that the character that is based on me has sent to Alvaroth herself in order to tell her what her high priest has been doing and kind of piss her off, so he gets to be the good guy by coming up with the idea of the Kraken Skull and be the good guy. Basically, the plot of Batman Begins. And that is the letter the players actually find in the dungeon, and then they're like, the player based on Mr.Tarrasque is the bad guy. So, and then there's some other stuff that really sets the atmosphere, and there's some environmental storytelling through player handouts. By the way, the character based on me is called Duke Heinrich for a reason. I will explain that in the PDF. And this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, the PDF that you can pick up. And this is it, ladies and gentlemen, Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, the PDF that you can pick up from Drive-Thru-RPG or my very own web shop, where you can also pick up the physical. If you pick up the physical, you automatically get the PDF. Really quickly, there's a link in the description and probably the tagged comment where you can buy me a cup of coffee once a month or just once in order to support me. If you do that, I'm eternally grateful for that, because your support really goes a long way into having this YouTube channel continuing to be a reality. So if you do that, you get a tag on Discord for being a tipper or a barista, depending on what you spend, and I'm really grateful if you do that. I have Dreaded Accursed. Amazing cover, of course, with the Temple of Alvaroth right here, and the skeletal dragon, and this is the ship the players arrive in, and they have to figure out a way to go into this dungeon with this Kraken Skull that they need to put on the altar of Alvaroth. All of the backers that backed me in order to be able to create this are right here, and I just want to, I'm not gonna spoil the entire thing, just want to kind of run you through what you get, what it is, and just to show you that it's just a bit more than one of those short form adventures. It's not an entire campaign per se, but it's kind of in between an adventure and the campaign. So it's just about 4 to, I don't know, 7, maybe even 8 sessions, depending on what your players do. And it even, as you can see, it offers player options like a new player race, newer player class options. There are the monsters from the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary. Dreaded Accursed Bestiary from Nord Games that I use for this adventure are all in here. So also the new monsters that I come up with, the Titanic Sea Spider, for example, is in here. So all of these stat blocks are in here. So it's completely standalone for you to use. You don't necessarily need the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary, but it comes in pretty handy if you are trying to figure out what's happening in the story and you're running monsters at the same time. It's always handy to have the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary, but if you don't have it, you can perfectly well do this. So there's a few chapters. Mountain Food, travel to the island. Mountain Food is the first chapter. That is like the lighthearted role playing, getting the actual mission, defeating a Titanic sea spider. The Kraken encounter is literally going to retrieve a Kraken skull on tier 2. Yes, it's a special thing that we created. It's really cool. A few people play tested it. I know a lot of people that absolutely love it. We figured out a way for a tier 2 group to defeat the Kraken, which is amazing. Travel to the island, and then the Isle of the Dreaded Accursed itself, and then Breakwave Dungeon, which is the dungeon beneath the chapel right here. So yeah, that is basically it. So we get an adventure synopsis like we all know it from adventures, and as you can see, the layout has been done really, really well. Not by my hand, of course. So there is the Mountain Food kind of starts off with the Titanic sea spider just to show off like the wrath of the evil sea goddess who is just destroying everything, right? Like the villages and sinking ships and all of that. And to show kind of that power, I've come up with a Titanic sea spider that just pops up in the harbor of Mountain Food and starts destroying and killing people, and the players need to defeat it, which is a perfect way of getting into it. We got some lore of the goddess Mitra right here, who is another goddess that I use in this adventure for a side quest, but also for some world building, a goddess that I've been using for like 20 years now. And then there is Duke Heinrich, who is based on me. Look, right here, if you see it, that's me, right? That's me. Let's say it's Duke Heinrich. He's called Duke Heinrich for 2 reasons. In the story, he's a duke. His name is Heinrich, but my real name in real life is Henrik Hertogs. That's my real name. Henrik is my first name, which is Heinrich, basically, more German-like, but Henrik. And my last name, Hertogs, literally means of dukedom. Basically, that's basically what it means. It's like, so literally my name, you could say, is Henrik Duke or Duke Heinrich. So that's where this name comes from, and I really like having him in here because, spoiler alert, if you're a player, run right now. If you're a dungeon master who wants to read this stuff themselves, run right now. But he ends up being the absolute bad guy of the story, and the players figure it out in a point where they cannot really touch him, and they really build up this hatred towards him, which I think is really cool. I've made myself the bad guy for some reason. There's some other NPCs right here. Major Mardusk, who's actually really cool. And there's Oris the Cook, who I absolutely love. He has tentacles coming out of his belly that he uses to carry plates around. There is maps for using the encounter with the Titanic sea spider. And some fans of JVC Parry might know Admiral Greysail. Admiral Greysail is a character that we just took from another adventure by JVC Parry, and we put it in here just to kind of have like, to tie that in with each other, because this adventure is a really good tie-in with that other nautical adventure by JVC Parry, Call from the Deep, by the way. It's the name of the adventure. There's the Kraken encounter, which is I call it cinematic storytelling encounter. It is more of a skill challenge, but with a cinematic storytelling to it, that players can do all kinds of stuff, and there's all kinds of random stuff on the ship that can happen, and they need to help the entire fleet of Mountain Food defeat the Kraken. But if you run it in a right way or in a good way, they end up actually being the people that do the final shot to the Kraken and split open the stomach and go and retrieve the skull. So it is, I've played this, I've ran this a few times. I know people who ran this, and this might be the thing that I am mostly proud of in this entire encounter. It was like my idea, and I pitched it to Joshua, and Joshua was like, yeah, we're going to build this, and he really helped with like figuring out how exactly we wanted to do it. I've never seen anybody do this in the same way. It is basically a skill challenge, but it is kind of told in a more cinematic way, which I really like. I really always like to narrate stuff, and it goes on. It just goes on. Travel to the island, all of that stuff. Isle of the Dreaded Accursed itself. So you travel to the island. There's a bunch of random encounters that can happen, some of them expand the story. I really like having random encounters that build the world and expand the story. For example, there's a ghost ship. There is one, the shipwreck, which was a stretch goal, by the way, where players, this has taken us almost an entire session, the shipwreck, where the players can dive towards a shipwreck and find a few magic items. So yes, it also has 6 magic items. What they do here is, of course, it's all explained right here, but your players can come across the shipwreck while they're traveling the sea and finding the Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, which wasn't named Isle of the Dreaded Accursed in the past, but now it is because it's filled with undead. If you go watch the synopsis part of this video if you want to know more about that. There's a few more stuff here. There are some stat blocks, and then there are actually 2 NPCs from 2 people who decided to back the project for a lot of money, and they actually were they were added in here. We wrote these NPCs together with them, and they got a place in this adventure, which I really like. Anthony Klaas and Reese. Oh man, it's always like Hanlon. Reese Hanlon. Thank you so much for doing that. I absolutely love that, and I absolutely love that they're in here. So you can add them, and these are optional, and that's the cool thing about them. You can use them or you cannot use them. There's a really cool puzzle section in like the temple itself in order to find the entrance to the dungeon. It is a shadow encounter where the players walk into this church and they see their own shadows being cast here on the wall, but then they're looking for stuff and they need to figure out a puzzle, and then a spiral staircase opens up under the altar, but the last person to go in gets attacked by their own shadow. It is a really dangerous encounter, and I even had a player character die at that point, which is a good point to introduce a new player character, because in a dungeon it's always hard, but here it's possible, like a late bloomer that like kind of joins the party, but it's a really cool shadow encounter. I'm really proud of that one too. And then you get like this dungeon crawl that is long. There isn't more to say. It is filled with puzzles. Wally DM, my friend, my ally, has as a stretch goal that one entire room as a puzzle, because he's the master of puzzle encounters. So he did a room in the dungeon, which is right here, if I'm not mistaken. This room is the puzzle room. It's a really great puzzle. My players loved it. So yeah, Wally DM even has his hand in here. And then the final scene is where the players come with this cremated Kraken skull. Yes, that's the way to carry a Kraken skull, because you cannot carry a Kraken skull through a dungeon in its normal size, right? So you need to burn it and then try to put it on the altar. But of course, the High One wants to stop you, wants to defeat you. So it does encounter this dragon, this skeletal dragon, like Joshua likes to say, is way too high challenge rated for the players, for a party of level whatever they are at that point. So this is how you use environmental things for monster encounters. The dragon needs to be distracted more than it needs to be defeated, because once you put this thing on the altar right here, you actually anti-curse the High One. So the highest ranked member of the cult turns back into his humanoid form, and all is said and done. So that is the way to defeat this skeletal dragon. It's not per se defeating its hit points, which will be very hard fought if you try to do that. And that's how I build my stories, how I've been always building my stories. Like, you should use like environmental stuff, so you can use way higher CR creatures, but if you use the right environmental stuff and storytelling stuff, you can put them in, and your players can overcome that challenge, although they aren't necessarily strong enough for it. It's like Lord of the Rings, where Frodo isn't a good fighter or whatever, but it is due to other stuff happening that they actually succeed in whatever they were trying to succeed. And that is Isle of the Dreaded Accursed. It is also It also has a side quests that your players can discover. It is a hidden side quest. It needs to be unlocked by asking the right questions in the beginning of the adventure in town, and then the players can go to the Dwarves of Mitra side quest, which isn't necessarily to do, but it is good because it gets you another magic item that can help you along the way. There's an entire section on confronting Duke Heinrich because he is the bad guy. You can confront him, you can try to squeeze some money out of him, you can do execution, extortion, all of those options, and that is it. Traveling to Mitra Mountain, that's the entire side quest. There's monsters in here, players options in here, all of that stuff, monster stat blocks, merfolk zombies, because we came up with that stuff, giant shark zombie. These are monsters from the Dreaded Accursed Bestiary. Used. These are magic items you can find in the game. Other player handouts that you get separately if you buy the physical edition. These are alternate maps you can use while you're doing an encounter. So for example, the harbor map was all clean and nice, but once the spider attacks, you can drag and drop this into your virtual tabletop, and you can have this Titanic sea spider be here because it destroyed everything. And that, for you, ladies and gentlemen, is Isle of the Dreaded Accursed. And that's kind of my review of my own product. I'm really happy with it, outside some small stuff that I will do differently next time. And if you want to support me, go to my Ko-Fi account. If you want to support me more, make sure to follow me on Kickstarter because I got a lot more stuff planned. And until next video, bye-bye.